because we're here. Hi, my name is Lenise. For those who don't know me, I'm the support group leader for Team Phenomenal Hope. And I'm so glad to see each and every one of you. I have to start off by saying that this meeting is recorded. Why is it recorded? Because Team Phenomenal Hope has a YouTube channel. So if you ever miss a meeting, just go to YouTube and hit Team Phenomenal Hope on YouTube, and it should bring you to our channel, and you can catch all the news, all the different meetings, everything. Katie is extremely organized. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Wow,
a couple of housekeeping. I know, right? A couple of I haven't seen it because I don't want to see what I look like. But a couple of housekeeping things. Let me see. I told you we recorded. Okay, two different things. We have two different programs that are phenomenal. We have stuff that's phenomenal, but these are two I'm going to talk about. Let Me Be Your Lungs, LMBYL. And that is, if you know someone who bicycles, races, biathlon, triathlon, swims, walks, if they want to symbolically be your lungs, because none of us can, well, at least I'm gonna speak for me. I can't do any of those things. So if they want to be your lungs, they can do that and raise money for Team Phenomenal Hope. And they could be your lungs. Somebody could be Satine's lungs, or Sue's lungs, or Denise's lungs, or Denise, the other Denise, and Elizabeth, anybody, Heather, anybody, they could be anybody's lungs, okay? And what happens is that the money they raise goes directly into the fund called Unmet Needs. Unmet Needs is our fund where if you're a pulmonary hypertension patient or a caregiver of a pulmonary hypertension patient, there is a $500 grant that's available each year. There is no credit check, there is no cosign, there is no anything. It's open on the first of the month. You go to Team Phenomenal Hope /unmet needs, and you will find it. And it's $500, but and there's really nothing. It takes 3 minutes to fill this thing out online. It's 3 minutes, and it's everything you know. The only thing that's different is that you have to have a PayPal account, because the money is paid directly into the PayPal account. Usually it's cashed out within 3 to 4 days. So that is available to each and every one of you. There's that we don't care how much you make, we don't care how many people in your house, we don't care. You need the money. It can be used for anything except medicine or vacation to the Caribbean or wherever. No vacations, no medicine, but it can be used for other things. You need air conditioning, you need food, you have to pay utilities, your car broke down, you need transportation money. So keep that in mind. And let me see what else is going on. I had to make notes because one of us, that be me, forgets things. Yep. So that's about it. So we're going to go right into the meeting. I thank you all for being here. We have Marcie Hoffmann. Marcie is going to tell you about herself, but I've known Marcie for a while, and she is so active in the PH community. And insurance is an important thing for all of us to hear about because everything is changing so much. So without further ado, Miss Marcie Hoffmann. One other thing. I know, right? One other thing though, unless you're speaking, I'm going to ask that you please mute only because, you know what, we hear all kinds of background noises, and I cannot be the only one who has heard people flushing the toilet. So please mute if you're not speaking, but I'm so glad to see you all. And Marcie, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Lenise. And I just appreciate you all taking the time out. It's great to see your faces, and I'm super excited to be here today. So thank you for the opportunity. Like Lenise said, just navigating through benefits and different financial resources and copays, you know, things like that it's an ever-changing landscape of what's available and even the processes to do so. So I'm excited to talk through it today. You know, really, I think everyone has personal experiences. So please, I like it just to be conversational, to engage. If you guys have any questions or comments or things you've experienced personally, please feel free to share. But like Lenise said, I'm super excited to be here and actually have been working with our PH community since 2013. So I know it's like a family, everyone's connected, and just, I'm honored to be able to do the work that I do. I'm the National Liaison of Patient Advocacy and Engagement with CVS Specialty Pharmacy. I've been with CVS the past 5 years. And then prior to that, I did work for Pulmonary Hypertension Association as well for several years prior. So I love our PH community and just trying to share information and resources and get involved in anything we possibly can. So with that, I guess I'll go ahead and share my screen. I do have slides just as we're talking through some resources. And don't worry, we'll be able to email out or share these resources afterwards too, so you all have them at your fingertips. And even if there's someone that you know of that might be looking for information, I just encourage sharing it with anyone. So give me 1 second, I'll go ahead and pull up my screen. And we'll get started. Okay. Can you see the slide deck here? There we go. Okay. I'm just readjusting everything on my on my screen. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So on today's agenda, really talking through insurance and other coverage, the influence you can have on your medical records, and then using that documentation to really tell your story and give an accurate representation of what you're experiencing. Denials, unfortunately, are a part of the process, but just talking through different ways that you can navigate through that as well. And then, of course, we'll talk about the copay assistance process, foundations that are available, and any other resources that might exist. I know we'll definitely talk about the Team Phenomenal Hope Unmet Needs Fund that Lenise had mentioned as well. So really, what I like to do is just talk about benefits, but without getting into the specifics, because each individual does have different situations of what you're facing, what your needs are. And I think with all of the resources that are available, it's just really important to feel empowered to be your own advocate of finding what's best for you. So things to think through is whenever you're able to do open enrollment, or if it's that time of year when it's time to rethink what benefits coverage you do have, just really having those resources to be able to choose the right plan for you and have the access to those financial assistance resources, different things around disability, status. I know that process can be really challenging as well. And then the appeals and just having the counseling resources that are available when you are looking at different unexpected costs that might come up, or getting those bills and trying to work through to get the best support that you possibly can. So just with that, being able to get the right insurance is one piece, but really making sure that your insurance is working for you. So, that's ultimately what you need. You want to make sure that your benefits are the best that you possibly, that you actually need. One piece of that is really the documentation behind it. So if many of you have talked with your insurance company, if they might have denied something, or they're looking at the different medical review, things like that, it's really important to think of your appointments with your medical providers as an opportunity to really get that full picture of what's going on, documented on your record, and that is going to give that impact back to the insurance company. So we all know that the medical community and the providers are incredible. All of our PH specialists are amazing, and they know what's going on with you. One big piece of that is they're documenting everything that you're telling them. So how do you have that impact, when you do have those moments in your appointments and you're talking through, Sorry, something just came through on my computer that blocked it off. So, okay, so when you are at your appointments, just be sure to use more than one sentence. I know a lot of people will use examples. You know, when you're on different therapies or taking different medications, noticing and taking notes about what's going on with you day to day. I know every day can be different, but just being able to use those descriptive words that explain what's going on, but tell the story. If you're able to go up the stairs a little easier, or, you know, walk down the hallway a little further or a little faster. You know, the 6-minute walk is a great example of that when you're at your doctor's appointments, of them being able to measure the progress and seeing what works for you, and seeing what doesn't. I know I've talked to a lot of people that you know, might start another therapy for pH and say, this one just is not having a lot of impact. So being able to bring that information back to your provider and they're able to document it. All of those things do provide a full picture to your insurance company. So even in so many instances when I've talked to people, and the path to proper diagnosis of pH has really been challenging. But even seeing what has worked will go back to the insurance company as well. So I talked to a lot of people about the ways that you're able to keep track of that. A lot of people will make notes in their phone on their calendar. I know there's a lot of different apps that you can track your symptoms or how you're feeling each day. A lot of people will keep a journal. There are patient toolkits available online as well. So one thing that someone said to me is it's really challenging just even being able to take the time to track and jot everything down from the day. But some people will even just put a smiley face or a frown face on the day. So that way you're able to get a general history of how you're feeling day to day with it changing so often. So all of those things are just really important in providing that to your medical care team, so they can actually have that impact on your record as well. So if there is the case that the insurance is struggling to approve your medications or treatment, whatever it might be, the very first thing I always tell people is, if you receive information about a denial from your insurance company, first and foremost, don't panic. There's always something else you can do, and there's a whole team that's able to help you. So even before, what I like to say, before we even go into the asking why, one thing to keep in mind is if you receive a letter from your insurance company that something is denied, your PH care team already most likely has received the same information. So they've received it. They're probably already talking to your specialty pharmacy about what's going on. I know just from being on the pharmacy side, you know, the pharmacy will also receive that information directly from the insurance company. And we have a whole team that works through benefits and appeals that can work with your prescriber on that denial. So when you are talking directly to your insurance company about this denial, definitely find out why. What is the reason behind the denial? A lot of times there might be something that looks like a denial, but it may not actually be denied. They might just have something that is held up in the system. Maybe they require a new prior authorization from your provider, or maybe there's some other documentation that the pharmacy has to send to them. So there could be a variety of reasons, and it might not be an actual final denial. So asking for that clarification can really help, just to make sure that you're heading down the right path, talking to the right person, so you're not having to start from square one over and over again. So
Marcie,
with that information, yeah.
I'm sorry, before I forget, I have a quick question. If we are denied, do we call like a customer service person at our insurance company? Because they really, to me, don't seem to know that much. Or should we reach out to someone else in our insurance?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Lenise, especially because I know it does take some time digging through it. It's almost like detective work just to figure out what's actually going on. And oftentimes the first person that you reach may not have all of those details or the background. So that's perfect. So what I would always suggest is when you learn of the denial from your insurance company, they will always have, or they should have, a contact phone number of who to reach out to regarding that denial. So I would start there. Whatever they're sharing with you, I would start with that phone number first before reaching out to anyone else at the insurance company. You know, if it's a basic number on your insurance card or whatever it might be, I would go off of that denial letter first and foremost. And with that, I mean, they do have a review process, a review team that looks and actually creates those denials. So I would ask to talk to them specifically if you get kind of a general phone number of just a basic customer service. I would ask for that reviewing team. But then again, with the insurance company, I would always go back before even calling them, because you might not need to. Before even calling them, I would call your pharmacy or your doctor's office first, just to find out if they've already been working on it, so you're not doing extra work when you don't need to. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Sure thing. Sure thing. So once you do get to that person at the insurance company, if you need to, I would definitely ask them, get to the right person, ask them what led to that decision. And it may be as simple as them saying, well, we need a prior auth on file. And that's something that I know happens year to year, sometimes even multiple times throughout the year. So the insurance company will be able to tell you even how long that authorization is approved for. I know a lot of people might get some information because those letters from the insurance companies can be challenging. I know there's a lot of information there and there's a lot of moving parts to keep track of. So they might be able to take a look at it in more detail and really give you exactly what you need to know to bring back to your pharmacy or to your doctor's office if it's a bit more complicated. So with that, I mean, that's exactly what you can, once you follow up and talk to your provider or your pharmacy, then you can work through that approval process, or if they're going to appeal it, whatever option would make the most sense. And for me, I always defer back to the medical community. I mean, they are the experts. So whatever your doctor's office is instructing you to do or taking that next step, I would definitely work with them on all of those options. So that's where it kind of comes into play if they're looking at a different therapy to try if your insurance is denying. And always ask your PH care team. So that's the full scope, not just the insurance company, not just your prescriber, but talk to your nurses, talk to your pharmacy and anyone else. I mean, just having something like this meeting today, having the support group to talk through, if you have someone that you're able to kind of bounce some ideas off of, I think that's always helpful. And I mean, it just goes back to that whole piece of don't panic, we're gonna work through this. I know it can feel like jumping through hoops. Oftentimes I feel like that even in the work that I do, but we'll always get to that final resolution one way or another. So try throughout that, not to let the stress be too overwhelming. And if it's something that you need someone else to kind of take this, if you have a trusted loved one that can help you, or a caregiver that can help you sort through that and say, I just can't have this on my plate anymore. I mean, I would offer that as another solution, because you're already working through so many other details. This is just one piece of the puzzle. So if after doing all of those things, if the insurance still says they won't cover your care, you definitely have more resources. So I kind of already mentioned some of these, but with your pharmacy, talk to them, talk to your doctor's office, the nurses there. If you have a social worker that's affiliated with your doctor's office, I would use them as well. Also, one thing that you can really do is reach out to the manufacturer of your medication. I know not every manufacturer has resources available, but many do, especially the brand name therapies. They might be able to help with their patient assistance programs or other resources that they can provide to you. I mentioned the support groups, patient advocates. You know, it's definitely a team effort to make sure that you get what you need and that you don't have a gap in your therapy. That's the other important piece. Whenever you're working through any of these denial issues or any insurance issues, always communicate to your doctor's office and your pharmacy how many days left you do have on hand of your medication. Because this, I mean, a denial and insurance issues, those are not within your control. So we want to make sure there's no lapse of therapy or missed doses, anything like that. So there are emergency shipments that can, you know, we can always work to see what type of situation it is, what type of emergency coverage can the pharmacy get to you or your manufacturer get to you so you don't miss any medication throughout this process. So in talking through some of the resources that are available, this is just a handful. So if you are looking for specific information on benefits coverage, I would say some great resources are, you know, healthcare.gov, medicare.gov. Each insurance needs are different person to person. So kind of take a look at what's out there. PHA does offer insurance counseling and support as well. So, I mean, reach out to everyone that you know, and I know Team Phenomenal Hope offers great support in sharing resources too. And Lanice mentioned that patient impact fund under the unmet needs. And that can always help if you are not at a point in the year where you're able to change your benefits or you're already past open enrollment to make any changes. A lot of times the unmet needs fund can really help to offset those medical expenses that you do have. Like she mentioned, I know I've talked to so many people who've been able to really lean on Team PH to help buy groceries or, you know, get utilities paid for, just help some of those other bills that are non-medication, non-medical expenses. And like I said, going to back to your manufacturer to see what patient assistance they might have too, if you're still experiencing those high costs. And, you know, if you're not sure who your manufacturer is, because I know even some of them, they have their patient assistance program, the PAP. It might have a different name than the actual manufacturer and different from the medication that you're on. So oftentimes going to PHA's website /help, that has all of the therapies that are FDA approved to treat PH. So you can click on those and actually see which manufacturer you would need to talk to. So that's been really helpful too. So I'll pause there. Does anyone have any questions specifically on running into those insurance issues or things like that? And if not, that's okay. Okay. So with your insurance coverage, even when things are approved, I know many people still will face high copays, especially depending on the insurance. If you're at the start of the year and or the start of the calendar year for your benefits, usually those maximum out-of-pocket amounts reset each time. So you may be facing a higher copay at the start of the year versus the end, things like that. There are foundations that can offer support. I know specifically in my role, I've been tracking these foundations since I started with CVS. I stalk their websites. I keep a spreadsheet just so I can refer back and see exactly what's going on. I know it has changed year to year and even throughout, and it can really be challenging. Even right now, none of the foundations have funding available for pulmonary hypertension. So it's really frustrating, the whole process in place, but there's always something else we can try. There's just always another option. When one door closes, another one opens. So these are a few of the foundations that have been available in the past for pulmonary hypertension medications. Each one is a little bit different. So I was going to talk a little bit in more detail around these. And if you've had any other experiences, please share as well. The assistance fund has changed year to year about the available funding that they have. When they are open, historically, they have shared that anyone that is eligible and has applied and is approved, what they typically have done in the past, and hopefully in the future, is they will approve someone for the entire calendar year without a dollar amount limit. So this would be able to help with copay assistance. So anything that you do have to have benefits coverage in order to use these foundations. And what I've talked to some of our benefits gurus here at CVS, they've said, even if we can bill your insurance for 1 penny, then we can do the rest to the foundation grant. And I know those copays are not just 1 penny, not anywhere near it. I wish they were, but it does have to be billed to the insurance first. And then that dollar amount that is your out-of-pocket copay, that's what would be billed directly to your grant. And that's the case for all of these foundations. But yes, the assistance fund, what they've done is whenever someone is approved, then they do it for the calendar year. I will say each one of these you would have to renew after the grant ends. With the assistance fund specifically on renewals, the last 2 years, they did open up to re-enroll in December for the following calendar year. And what I've seen happen there, it's caused a little bit of confusion because people will re-enroll and you submit that application. It's almost exactly the same as when you first sign up. So submitting that re-enrollment, people will receive an approval that the re-enrollment was received. That does not mean technically that the grant has been awarded, that the person has received an actual grant. So that's something to really pay attention if you're enrolling in these foundations, to really pay attention to see what is the foundation actually, what information are they sharing? So if your re-enrollment was received, that's not necessarily confirmation that you'll have that grant. Oftentimes with the assistance fund, when the re-enrollment is received, then there will be a follow-up communication if the grant was approved and will be able to be used in the new year. Sometimes they do wait to send that approval until January. So sometimes you will not have that information until you're already in the new calendar year, which is really tough. Even with that, I mean, always explain to the specialty pharmacy that you're waiting and your enrollment is pending, and that way we can work through other options too. So that's one piece with the assistance fund. And currently they do have a wait list option. So if any of you, or if you have friends that are kind of waiting and looking for new funding, I would encourage people to sign up for that wait list. Whenever they do receive additional funding for their PH grants, then the people that have enrolled in that wait list will get notified immediately when funding's available and have a certain time period to either say, yes, I'm still in need of this grant, or opt out, so that way the money can be allocated to other patients. The other one is Patient Advocate Foundation, PAF, and I mean, they have a very similar application process. Oftentimes what they will do is they will not go off of the calendar year, but they'll give a specific dollar amount and a specific end date if someone is approved. So that one actually just opened last week. They received additional funding, and then unfortunately they closed less than 24 hours later. They exhausted all of that funding to patients in need. The PAN Foundation is similar, and they will do also the dollar amounts for those that are approved. PAN Foundation currently does have a wait list available as well. So you can sign up for multiple wait lists at the same time. A lot of these applications will ask people, do you already have a grant, something like that. And I've seen a different, it's changed over the years, but I've seen that some people can still explain, yes, I have a grant, but there's only, let's say there's only $50 left. So it's not going to cover that next month's copay. So you're able to enroll in more than one whenever that's the case and you're still in need of funding. The HealthWell Foundation also has a PH application. Again, they are currently closed, but I know a lot of people might have received grants through HealthWell. Typically for PH, they have given up to $10,000 to be used for copay assistance. The one caveat with HealthWell Foundation that I've seen as far as re-enrolling is their calendar for the approved grants will have an official end date, and it does not go by the calendar year. So they usually will backdate it 30 days to be able to apply to any expenses if someone has received a shipment before they were able to get funding. So they do that, and then they run it usually for 12 months after. Whenever someone does need to re-enroll, the HealthWell Foundation will not allow people to re-enroll or renew a grant until about 30 days before the end date. So there's a lot of different variables there of when someone might be able to re-enroll. And unfortunately, we've seen that some people do exhaust those grant amounts, the $10,000. And I know like Patient Advocate Foundation just most recently, it was grants up to $7,000. So there's just many different aspects to this whole piece. And I think with it being so complicated and with it changing all the time, it's something, don't ever feel like you're not grasping it, because literally I learn something new every day in work, and I'm very hands-on with these foundations, with all the resources. It is just a moving target, and I think that's one way to approach it that makes it a little easier. So that's one of the things I always, when I'm talking through the resources that are available, I always try to share, I know it's overwhelming. I get overwhelmed with it, but just knowing that ahead of time kind of gives you a different frame of mind when dealing with it. Like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna get on this roller coaster of a ride of finding resources available, and it kind of lets you, lean on others for that support too. So I know specialty pharmacies have benefits teams, different patient service reps that are able to talk through these. If you're in the case where your grant has been exhausted or you need to find another resource and you're not getting that information that you need from any one individual, I would just say ask to talk to someone else, or talk to your support group, talk to your friends, talk to your medical team, your nurses, even if you have nurses from your specialty pharmacy that visit you or check on you, talk to them and share that information. And even in asking questions, that helps other people get the information they need to. I know every time I have a conversation or learn of a resource, I share it with my entire team. within the whole pharmacy and even outside. So it's just spreading that information because it does change so quickly. So being able to share it and really take it step by step, I think is the most important aspect. One thing I wanted to mention too, with the PAN Foundation, they actually also have insurance counseling resources and a couple links to videos on their website to share how to find the best benefits for each individual and things like that. They also created a resource called Fund Finder. So I have it later, the next screen actually. Let me see if I can pull this up. Okay, and you know what? Yeah, there we go. So it's actually below this. Sorry, it's cut off a little bit. But if you want, and I can share this afterwards, but if you go to their website, it's www.fund, F-U-N-D, finder, F-I-N-D-E-R.org. Anyone can sign up to get an account there. And it's really easy just to create an account. You can click through for each therapy or disease state that they show has coverage. And then what happens is whenever any one of these foundations reopens for copay assistance for the items that you follow, you'll get either a text message or an email alert. And they don't send spam, they don't send junk mail or requests or anything like that, but they will literally just send a quick update and say, this foundation reopened or has opened for pulmonary hypertension. And if you do have other therapies that you have medications for that are on the list, you could follow those as well. I know a lot of people will follow pulmonary fibrosis or even other disease therapies that are listed. So I've really found that to be very helpful. I think that's awesome that PAN Foundation created that. And they do give updates on all of the foundations that they know of that are offering support, not just their own. So that's really been an awesome way to connect. Does anyone have any questions as far as that goes? I think I see a message in the chat. So, oh, there you go, Katie. Thank you.
You know what?
I know Katie.
I do. I'm sorry, Marcie. I do. I'd like to know from everybody on here, and I'm going to ask everybody to unmute. So I'd like to know who here has ever had issues getting foundation funding. Has anybody here ever gone through that?
Yes, I'm Charlotte, and I'm living in Washington, and I've been diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension 17 years ago. And Lenise, yes, during that 17 years, I have had issues finding funding.
Oh, yeah.
When I was first diagnosed, I was helped to get on funding assistance with Caring Voice Coalition, which no longer exists, unfortunately. And when they stopped existing, it took me almost 3 months to find one of these assistance programs that would help, because a lot of us were on Caring Voice, and our cardiology center that takes care of our PH patients here has a nurse dedicated to helping people find funding. That's what she does. She was so overwhelmed that it just couldn't happen. So I got that list from PAN. I now take Opsumit, and I put myself on the waiting list, and I actually got the manufacturer of Opsumit to help me out until I could get on the assistance fund. And the assistance fund people have been wonderful. But ask me if I almost didn't have a heart attack every day for 3 months. Yes. Yes, I did. It's very scary.
Wow. Anybody else? Good heavens. Anybody else ever have trouble paying for their medicine where they needed funding?
Yeah, a few years ago, I had the assistance fund, ran out of funding from them, could not find anybody else. And I went for 2 months without one of the medications. And I definitely could feel the difference. And then this year, everybody was running out. As fast as I could put an application in, they were closing down. I finally did get one this year. I had 1 day's medicine left when I got the approval, and they did work with my insurance company to get mine out and delivered in time. So I didn't run out. But I answered the call on the PAH support line, and we were so over. I mean, that was all the calls that were coming in. And we were getting updates. And so as fast as we were getting updates to be able to give out even, I was going out and applying. And like Marcie said, some of them closed 24 hours later. That's how fast the money was going out.
And you know what? I neglected to do something, so I'm going to have to clean up my mess right now. Sue, where are you from? What
I'm in
state?
Chicago.
Chicago. And could you just tell me quickly what your PH diagnosis is?
Yeah, I'm PH and idiopathic,
Ah,
and I am group 3. They don't know what caused it, but I was diagnosed in 2007. I've been on oxygen since then. I was living in Colorado when I was diagnosed, and they told me to move. And I said, well, you're going to buy the house, you're going to pay for the move. But I did move in 2019 to come back to Chicago to help take care of my mother.
okay, thank you.
And that has been a tremendous help to my pH, because I was on 6 liters of oxygen 24 hours, and then 8 to 10 when I was doing something, and I was still swimming. Here I'm on 3 liters and 4 when I'm swimming. So my oxygen requirements went down when the altitude went down.
That's a big change. And it's because of a move. And I know Charlotte, you said you're from North Carolina. What PH do you have?
I have pH related to COPD and autoimmune, both.
You know what? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, and I was diagnosed in 2005, living in Flagstaff, Arizona at 7,000 feet. And I got the same message, get off the mountain and collect some oxygen on your way out the door. That's exactly what happened. And I lived in Phoenix during my diagnostic. It took 6 months of diagnostic tests to determine what the cause of my pH was. And we had family in the Puget Sound area. So we moved back here, and luckily we were renting when it happened. So we didn't have to sell and go through all of that, but it was still a big deal.
It is a big deal because we're changing our lives. And Marcie, so my thing is that I'm sorry I messed up. But when you do speak, if you could just tell me your state you're from and quickly tell me your pH diagnosis and what year you were diagnosed. Now, Marcie, I got a question. Now, Sue had mentioned, okay, Sue, you're on pH medicine, okay, for idiopathic. Okay, Marcie, does the insurance, did all these different foundations, do they mostly cover specific types of medicine, or is it pH medicine in general?
So with these funds, that's a great point, Lenise. With these funds specifically, I know within our team at CVS, we refer to all of our team as the PAH team, but I know not everyone typically has pulmonary arterial hypertension. So even with different diagnoses, these foundations, with the grants that they have, they do list that they cover any type of pH diagnosis. Yes. So even, I know some people might have PH-ILD for interstitial lung disease, and they can be used for the medication, Tyvaso. It can be used the same way.
Excellent. Okay, Marcie, I've interrupted enough. Go ahead.
No, I love the conversation. And Sue, I'm in Chicago too, so we're nearby. But yeah, I appreciate you both sharing, and Charlotte talking back to when everything changed. I think a big piece of that with Caring Voices, when they ended up closing, that was the worst that we've seen, and since the beginning. Yeah, because so many were relying on them, and the other foundations, while they had funding for other therapies, they did not have it open at that time for PH. So I would say since then, I think currently this year, honestly, to me, has been the next most difficult, because it's been over a month, with the exception of Patient Advocate Foundation opening for about 24 hours last week. It's been over a month without any of them being open. So it's really challenging. I think one big piece is to sign up on those wait lists. And I almost wonder if Patient Advocate Foundation did have a wait list already available, and maybe that's why they exhausted the funds so quickly. That's a possibility. But just to sign up and get those alerts and be prepared for anything, whenever there are not foundations that are available, that's when I always express, even without the foundations being open, there's something else we can try. So always express it to your pharmacy, even though these resources, I'm sharing them from CVS, they can apply to anyone, whether you're serviced by any specialty pharmacy, you can use those foundation grants. I talk to a lot of people also that might be on multiple therapies for PH specifically, and might have one come from one pharmacy and one come from another. You can use the same grant. Different pharmacies can bill the same grant. So I've seen, let's say someone had Humana specialty for one medication and CVS for another. I was able to see on the foundation pharmacy portal that both pharmacies were billing that same PH grant. So that's one piece to keep in mind. Don't think that if you're getting one from a different pharmacy that you have to find another grant. You can use it until it's been exhausted from the foundation. Another thing I thought about when we were talking is, if you get approved for a grant and then you might get a letter saying that your grant will be rescinded because we haven't been using it. Each grant typically has to be billed by your pharmacy every 120 days. So if they don't have a claim come through from your pharmacy, they might send you a letter that the grant is being rescinded and will be canceled. And that can be scary language on those letters. That's something to talk to your pharmacy about too, and let them know you got this letter, what's going on, why haven't we billed it? Oftentimes I've seen that sometimes it's because you've met your maximum out of pocket. So there isn't a copay. So that's why the pharmacy might not be billing it. But there can be different reasons, there can be many different reasons. So always follow up with your pharmacy directly on that. And then when you don't have funding currently and there are no foundations open, talk to your pharmacy. Always use the language I always express to people. Use the language, say, when you're quoted a $2,000 copay, I don't know anyone that could afford that every month just for one medication. So talk to your pharmacy, say, I cannot, express if you cannot afford it, and ask if there's anything else you can try, any other options. If there's a team at the pharmacy that can help you apply for any other financial assistance, or if it is going back to the manufacturer and getting on that patient assistance program. I know, like you mentioned with Opsumit, that you had assistance straight from the manufacturer. So a lot of them do offer assistance, and it's just kind of jumping through those hoops to get to it. I think it is important, even though I know it can feel like sounding like a broken record, but explaining it to everyone that's involved, your whole team. So I always tell people, we need to support you. So you tell our team, and we'll try to find every possible option that's available. Talk to your medical provider. That is just awesome that, you know, some of the offices have dedicated nurses to help you find funding, but like you mentioned, Charlotte, it can be so overwhelming when there's nothing available and everyone's in need at once. So just kind of think about that. It always helps too to have all of your documentation available when you know that you're going to have to reapply. So that's one less thing that you know you could do in advance to take a little bit of pressure off of you when you do have those applications. Being able to have, if you file taxes, your most recent tax form, so you have the annual income for your household, anything like that. Yeah, and Polly, I see you've raised your hand. Do you have a question or want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the documentation that you're talking about, are you talking about like doctors' office numbers? I mean, what is it that you mean for documentation?
Yeah, yep. So specifically, I would say any information around your annual household income. So you have those dollar amounts ready. Some of the foundations don't require you to send it in, but some do require proof of income. Even if it's a letter, if someone's on Social Security, if it's their Social Security letter, that sometimes would be fine. So usually from the applications I've seen, if you're doing it yourself online, you go through, you enter, confirm that you are diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, confirm what medications you're currently taking. They will ask also your insurance information. So if you have your insurance card handy, you'll need to enter like the ID number, the group number, all of that. And then you would need your doctor's office information. Some of them, like the PAN Foundation, I believe you can search to see if your provider is already listed in the system. Sometimes it can be, I've had some challenges of finding the right prescriber if they're already in there. Some of them you could search by the doctor's NPI number, what they have to enter to prescribe. But if you have any struggles with that, I would say, you know, you can always talk to the foundation about it. I guess with that too, kind of jumping back, is even if you don't have internet access or a computer to apply on your own, you can call into these foundations and they can screen you and do the application questions over the phone. With that being said, at the start of the year, it is extremely high call volumes for all of them, because it's not just their PH funds, but it's for every therapy that they cover. That they are getting. I mean, I literally have talked to people and I've called in where it says you're like number 82 in line. So it can be, you know, and that's another stressor. So just kind of prepping yourself and knowing, okay, I have to call in, I might be on the phone or be on hold for a very long time. You know, maybe have a book handy or a crossword puzzle while you're waiting. As frustrating as it is, it's like, what can we control and what can't we? So yeah, that's the basic information that they will ask. And then they have all the fine print just saying, do you agree? You know, all of the different things that you check off at the end. So yeah, there's not a whole lot, but just to have it handy. And the same goes even for if your specialty pharmacy can help you apply for different funding, they would ask those same questions. I know even just to confirm, even though in the system, we know we've got all of the information, but just to confirm, especially if applying on your behalf to a foundation. And
Okay.
typically, I have had some of the patient manufacturers ask for financial info too, if you're applying for PAP.
Thank you.
Marcie, it's Sue.
Absolutely.
One of the other things that I know I talk to people about on the helpline, support line, is when we are looking for that time when we can't get our pills met, we don't have the grants available, is calling your state senator or state representatives. They often will have some kind of funding Now, they aren't going to be able to match like a grant or anything, but they sometimes have places where they can get you some funding to help with that one-time payment for this month while you're waiting for your grant. More like what we have with this group, where they can help pay for some other things so that you can use the money you've got to pay for your, but it's probably one of the least used, and yet some of those senators have been around for forever, and they have more contacts than the pills we take. And for some of us, that's a lot of pills.
Yeah.
And if people don't know who that is, we can help on the support line with helping you find out who to contact.
That is a great point, Sue. Yes.
And you know what else? I found out I get my medicine through CVS Caremark. And you know what? I found out that they're very, very helpful when I'm in a financial bind. And also, if you have your insurance, my insurance agency has where if you have critical disease or a chronic disease, that you can get a nurse assigned to your case. And my nurse helped me get oxygen because I need oxygen, not because of low oxygen rates, but because of heart failure. And I mean, like they are there to also, you know, help you. So check with your insurance agency to see if you can get, if there is such a thing as a nurse that can be assigned to your case, because lots of times they also can fight your battle. Elizabeth, did you have your hands up? You're muted, hon.
Yes, actually, I wanted to say something. I did notice that because I have sarcoidosis and I also have PHA.
Okay.
A lot of times that I've noticed with our doctors is the coding. Sometimes they don't put the proper coding in to be able to get a lot of our medications.
True.
I would almost say try to listen in as much as we can and find out what coding we need to actually have the doctors put in. And I've actually asked insurance companies exactly what coding is that you're looking for.
This is true. I had that issue. I was denied something and the coding was wrong. What state are you from, Elizabeth?
I'm from Missouri.
That's true. I mean, like I've had medicine that was denied because the coding was wrong. It's a human
And
error.
it
but it's
happens
really
more
true.
often than we think. And a lot of times with a lot of the medications I'm getting, I have to go in for Remicade, Cellcept, and Trevazo. And I finally got a chance to get those things through the actual companies that make them.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sue again. One of the things that I haven't heard anybody say, and I found to be most true, is ask. We don't know what all is out there. And a lot of times they're not going to offer it. A lot of these pharmacies won't offer their payment programs unless you ask them if they've got something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, well, yeah, let me put you through to. And you're thinking, well, I'm sitting here telling you how I can't afford it, et cetera, and you still don't volunteer it.
Right.
You got to ask.
Yep. I can definitely speak to that. I know it sounds silly that someone would have to say, I cannot afford $2,000 for my life-sustaining medication every month. What else, like, is there something else available? But it does take expressing the need. I completely agree. Let's see. And with that, I mean, while you're expressing it, it can be maddening, and you know, it can be scary. It can be every possible emotion while you're trying to jump through these hoops just to get something that you literally just need. So, you know, whenever I talk to someone, I tell them every emotion you're feeling is totally valid. And this is, you know, this is not your fault. This is unfortunately the way the system is, and we will get to that we'll get to that resolution one way or the other, but just knowing that you can keep trying or hand it off to someone else to express on your behalf too. See here. And I'm just double checking the chat. I see a question here. I will be getting Medicare soon. Is there any coverage that will pay for the PAH meds? So actually that does bring up another piece. So some of these foundations do require specific benefits. One piece that I did not mention is with the foundations, they might say that it's grant is only available for those with Medicare or Medicaid. Some accept government, like military benefits, but they may not accept commercial insurance. The only one I know of is the assistance fund when they open, that they do accept all different benefit types, including commercial insurance or just through an employer. So with that question, even with your Medicare coverage, you know, there are different resources if you get like a supplemental, or if you have Medicare Advantage plan, things like that. And it's really hard until you do have the benefits in place. We wouldn't be able to know what the actual copay is, but just knowing that there are these resources that are available, or if you do have to go back to get assistance through the pharmacy, if there's a financial hardship program, or if you go back to the manufacturer, it's very similar, even with Medicare. So some of them can be less expensive and some can still be just not able to afford. I know that's not a very concrete answer, but there's always another option. So that would be when you can use all of these resources, the foundations and such.
Marcie, do the foundation resources pay for medicine only? Like, would they issue grants for like concentrators or oxygen or something like that?
So I have not seen one for oxygen specifically, but it's interesting actually that you brought this up, because when the Patient Advocate Foundation reopened this past week before they closed, they did list additional things besides the copay. So they did have things that you could use the grant for the copay assistance. You could also use it to help with like with the premiums through your benefits. So your insurance benefit premium. They did list additionally, I'm going to pull up the exact wording, because they listed that they would be able to help with provider visits, which I have not seen before. So that's huge. If we see that they're going in those directions, you know, if foundations are able, because they are regularly audited. So if they're able to offer additional support going forward, I think that's huge. So yes, they listed office visits and administration charges related to treatment, which I thought was very interesting. So each one, like I said, can be different. Typically when it is for copay assistance, I mean, every single one will specify exactly what you can use the grant for. But most of them have been for copays or co-insurance and deductibles.
Okay.
And yeah, no, it's great. And the other one that I've seen making some changes, and I think this is really evolving because of different social determinants of health and different health equity needs that I think a lot of different organizations are moving forward towards. I have seen that the PAN Foundation has opened I believe it's the PAN Foundation has opened what they're calling a transportation fund. So anyone that does have a grant for copays through PAN can also sign up to get additional support for transportation to help with those expenses to and from the pharmacy and things like that. And there is, I believe, Patient Advocate Foundation also has a health equity fund for very specific disease states in addition to copay assistance. So I'm hoping that more and more resources will open up there.
I've actually ran into a transportation thing when I was originally trying to go to New York for treatment. I did it through Angel Flight. They were actually going to donate flight time for me. It's usually businessmen that set it up so you can actually do Angel Flight for
Wow.
treatments.
Mhm.
It's a
That's
really good
incredible.
program. They have them different parts of the United States, and you got to look them up, and then you put in a grant for them.
Huh.
So that is a program that I actually was involved with. They actually donated a flight to me, and then my insurance bailed out of me, and I couldn't go to New York, so I ended up going to Kansas City instead.
Oh, wow. Hey,
Something you want to look
thanks
into.
for, yeah, I'm gonna look into that and definitely share with others. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Angel Flight was a big deal for me. I mean, it was awesome, and they really were really kind. And if you're a person like us that can't breathe too well, they can actually get you set up in medical planes, medical things, because of us not
Oh,
being
wow.
able to handle the altitudes.
That's phenomenal. I had no idea.
Okay.
Thank you. That's why
You're
we
very
have
welcome.
support groups.
I also wanted to touch base on, there was another lady that just a little while ago had mentioned about contacting senators, so forth.
Mhm.
It's so true on the things that she's speaking of. And one of the things I have actually been involved with is the Rare Disease Week in Washington, DC. And so a lot of those programs can actually help us get some funding to help us.
Sure.
So, I mean, I was
Yeah.
actually involved with the 21st Century Act, Medical Act, to help us get it into some treatments.
Thank you for that.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think really we kind of sort of need all the help we can get. We're already limited in so many things, and this disease is not a cheap thing to have, and it involves so many other components. Does usually, if I don't know, okay, I have comorbidities, and I'm pretty sure everybody else on here pretty much does have something else. My big thing is I have pulmonary hypertension secondary to left heart failure. And I know that COPD was mentioned, idiopathic was mentioned, and I forget what else was mentioned. But having the comorbidity, and okay, now especially us in the group 2 or 3, lots of times it seems to be that funding is not as easy to get if you're not like PAH. Am I saying it where everybody gets through my mumbling? It seems like when you have PAH, it's a little bit easier. But when you have like PAH, secondary to scleroderma, secondary to COPD, secondary to left heart failure, it seems to be a little bit harder. Marcie, is that in my imagination or?
No, it's not. I think
Oh.
one of the reasons is, and this would go back to the specifics around the FDA approving these therapies for treatment for pulmonary hypertension. So that would go back to, again, talking to your provider around which WHO group you are, but typically WHO group 1 is what is most often approved for these therapies to be used for. And that is the PAH. And I know there's a lot of nuances around that. And the one with PH-ILD, that was just recently approved within the last year to be used for Tyvaso specifically. So there's a lot of different work that I know is still in progress, different research, different clinical trials. You know, there's a lot of things that lead up to the FDA approval. And there's a lot in the pipeline right now. So even though we've got the approved therapies right now, hopefully they'll continue down that road and produce more, and hopefully one ultimately for a cure too. But yeah, that's something to talk to your provider about, specifically what the diagnosis code is, and that can help oftentimes with insurance. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Hey, everybody ask the questions because Marcie's here. You cannot leave here and say, I wanted to ask that, but I just didn't know to ask your questions while we have a chance. Goodness, because you know what? Let's be honest. Our doctors know diddly-wat squat about insurance. So ask your questions now. Okay, Marcie, you want to continue?
Yeah. One other thing, just in the conversation around it, even when you do get a grant approved, and let's say you've already done the work, you've already called your pharmacy, told them, and they have it on file, there can still be billing errors. You know, we're all human. So when you know you have that grant, if you still get a bill in the mail, let's say something comes in, that can be shocking looking at those dollar amounts. I would say take that same approach as even when you're looking at a denial. Try not to panic and just try to get down to the base of it and find out why. And maybe it's as much as maybe there's a lapse in the billing cycle and they missed it, or maybe the team didn't actually bill it correctly to the grant, but that can always be corrected. I would just try to talk through it and make sure that the person on the phone understands every moving part, because you all are facing this, I mean, on a daily basis. And the person that you may get on the phone from any organization doesn't really understand the full scope, but being able to say, hey, no, I got this bill, that's not right. I never agreed to this copay. No one, when I was placing my refill, no one ever even told me. And that's where then the pharmacy can follow up on that to get it corrected for you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Another piece around the billing about it is, if for some reason there are no other options and you have agreed to pay a copay when you're placing your order, if you do agree to that and pay out of pocket, if it's still something that's quite large and you cannot afford to pay it all at once, you could talk to your pharmacy to set up a payment plan. I would also still look for and keep your alerts on for when a foundation does reopen, because a lot of times, like I said, they will backdate those grants when you're approved, and you could submit your proof of payment to the grant at the foundation directly to get reimbursed a lot of times. Mm-hmm.
Reimbursement is a great thing. Has anybody here ever participated in a trial just to maybe offset the cost of their medicine a little bit? No trial people?
No, but I can share an instance of receiving a bill from the insurance or from the pharmaceutical company for thousands of dollars. And I was switched to Tyvaso to try it to see if that would help earlier on. And because I had Medicare Advantage, and because the providing pharmacy was made to believe that it would be billed under Medicare Part B respiratory, because it was an inhaled medicine, I got a contract with them that said that I owed nothing. And I kept that contract, and that was a good thing, because when it came around and they decided, oh no, this isn't a COPD drug, this isn't Medicare Part B, we're not going to pay for it. I got the pharmaceutical company to put me on their patient assistance program because we refused to pay the bill. I had a contract that said you owe nothing. So my advice to everybody is, whatever you get from them, keep. Don't throw anything away if you signed it. And if they signed it. Keep a paper trail because it can save your behind. It saved our
Yep.
behind from owing over $300,000.
Woo! See, I wouldn't have had to
It's
worry
really
about the
good.
paper trail because I would have been on the floor.
Well,
Wow.
the thing is, I'm a fighter. And I'm a retired medical professional and I was support group leader at that time. So I knew how to do a lot of this stuff. So,
One of the things Marcie has said at the beginning was we have to be our own advocates. We
that's right.
have to advocate for ourselves. There was years when there were things that the doctor said and I just went along with it because they're doctors. But then as you fight these battles, you figure out they're human. But we have to also advocate for ourselves. And another thing Marcie said that really struck with me because I recently did this. I have a backup in my brother, in one of my brothers, because I had gotten so sick one time. I just got too sick and tired to fight battles. And he fought for me. I think it's important that when we're dealing with a lot of insurance and when we're dealing with health issues, that we have, if it's possible, a backup. And this backup has to have exactly what's wrong with you. They have to have your diagnosis. Should be written down on paper somewhere. It's important to have someone who can fight your battle also for you. And with you when you're just too tired to fight. Because let's be honest, there are times when we're just too tired.
Yeah.
We're just too tired. And that I think I appreciate you saying that, Marcie, because I think that's important. I mean, like we can fight, but we're sick, or we still have issues, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. Does anybody else have somebody that can? Oh, while we're talking about that, Marcie, insurance wise, if we have somebody like my brother's going to do it for me, what do we have to provide insurance wise? Right, like say I'm in the hospital and my brother calls and he says, okay, I'm going to handle this for my sister. Do most insurances require a separate piece of paper or some kind of notarized thing, or what do they want?
Yes.
In order to have your brother talk to them about yep. Yeah, you usually will be able to designate a caregiver or someone that could speak and act on your behalf for those decisions. And that's the same, your pharmacies would be able to do the same. So you can add a person that is authorized. You can give your authorization for the pharmacy to talk to an individual about your personal information and your account.
Well, and if you have a living will, if you have a designated medical person, and I know my sister had to use hers more than once when I was hospitalized. And you give a copy to the hospital, that also is a big help because then they can use it when they're prescribing something for us as we're leaving or whatever. And some of them, it's as simple as having a letter in writing, and you basically designate. It doesn't have to be a formal living will.
Right.
But it should be in writing, and if it's not a living will, it should be certified that this person is authorized on your behalf to make those kind of decisions. And some states have, and that should be kept with this if they have it, but every state has some form of this pretty much now. And it's your 5 wishes, or, and it basically says, here's the things that I want you to make sure you do or don't do. Do you want feeding tube? Do you want a respirator? Do you want a ventilator? And if so, how long? And anything that because that person should know what your druthers are. And so should your doctor.
Absolutely. And I think too, with insurance purposes, it cuts back on a lot of, be prepared. It's like one of my things. Just be prepared. Hi, Kathleen.
Yeah, and I think along with that, Sue, I've talked to people who have been admitted at the hospital. A lot of hospitals do have someone that can help you with that. So if you don't have it in advance,
Yeah.
they have someone, whether it be a social worker or someone that can provide you with the paperwork, even if it's not an official like medical power of attorney, but they can provide you with a form and you fill in the
Right.
person that you want to designate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you'll usually get that from the the patient advocate. And
Yeah.
sometimes again, you have to ask. And if there's one thing I have learned is, don't be afraid to ask. You don't have it now. You ask, they say no, you don't have it anyway. So don't ask, don't get.
That's right.
Just get it. So Marcie, do you think that this will change anytime soon with foundation funding, or it's just like, we'll see?
Yeah, I don't have insight to that, but I do know that even with our industry partners, so everyone's having the conversation, you know, the manufacturers, the pharmacies, you know, our nonprofit organizations, everyone is trying to collaborate to learn more. I think it's really important talking about those advocacy opportunities that you can reach out to legislation, or if you get those emails, if there's different bills or things, you can auto-populate and send. I think it really does take collaboration and everyone to really get this attention to, you know, your senators and everyone in office to really push on our behalf, because this is a problem not just within the PH community, but it's across the board, you know, with these copays and different resources that are available. So I think it's really important to even just spread the information, and the more noise we can make, hopefully something will change.
That's true.
But yeah, I think that's a big piece. And I think probably even just during the pandemic, having so many people that were going without things that they needed really did bring a lot of attention and focus to those nonprofit foundations. Just in seeing some of the change around the health equity funding and different resources like that, I think that is one example of knowing that there are unmet needs out there, and hopefully things will continue to change for the better. But yeah, with a lot of times when I talk to people about what exists and what hasn't, I mentioned earlier that I've been tracking the last 5 years. I've been tracking these foundations every time they open and close, and our team specifically, just speaking to CBS, you know, we're looking at that data. We're seeing how it correlates. We're seeing if people are less likely to refill their prescriptions because they might not know that there are other options out there, even if a foundation is closed. So that's where we're trying to get this information out to everyone, you know, everyone, not even just within CBS. But trying to spread the word every time, because I mean, that's the worst case scenario. I think one of you had mentioned really just fighting for yourself, and knowing, like, when you get that bill, knowing that is not the final answer and you never agreed to it, and you're going to find the proof. Unfortunately, not everyone realizes that there are other options. And I think a lot of people don't voice it to ask those questions. Even some people are just totally exhausted or might just give up. So it's really tough. And I just, that's where it's so overwhelming, I know, to go through all of this. But going back to Lenny's thing, you know, have a backup, have someone you can say, I just need your help with this. I can't do it anymore, because that, you know, insurance is its own language. I do not speak it fluently by any means. so it's hard enough. And then on top of it, when you're not feeling well and just trying to get what you need, it's a fight, that's for sure. But just relying on anyone you possibly can, I think is really important. And to know that they're there to help you in those moments.
I did run into one other thing that I thought might be helpful to mention, is that a lot of people don't realize that you may get Social Security, but you can also apply for government assistance that will help offset your copays. Those are great, but the one problem I've ran into with them is because the mass amount of medications I have received, and also my husband, considering he's a type 1 diabetic, a lot of those programs will not accept us. And they're not taking into account on how much money we're actually spending out. That is the most frustrating thing. I almost wish there was something we could do to actually stop that from happening. Because we're spending out more than we got coming in. We're lucky if we can eat.
I think a lot of
So-
times programs go by your gross, not your net.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
my gross each month looks phenomenal, but my net just whoops it down. And I think that is also a problem. That's also a problem if you're trying to pay for medicine, you're trying to get food, you're trying to pay utilities, you can't get a lot of assistance because of your gross. And I think that sometimes that's what people look at, but one of the things I've noticed that nobody looks at is how much we pay out for insurance. I can't speak for anybody else, but I pay a lot of money for insurance. And don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for it, but it's still a lot of money. So, but it's not looked on. I think insurance should be looked on as a bill, quite frankly,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But
I
it's,
totally agree.
Yep,
yeah, I
me
mean,
too.
it's difficult. This is not a difficult life it's not an easy life that we have. It's a doable life. Sometimes we have to go through a little something, but things I learned here today, phenomenal, like angel flight. Good heavens, who knew? Talking to the
I did.
talking to the senators. I mean, some of these things I never thought about. I mean, it's just really amazing. But I think that insurance wise, I'm thinking, Marcie, too, that like you said with the pandemic, that maybe people will see that there are needs out there. I'm hoping.
I'm hoping too. I'm right there with you, Lenise.
But meanwhile, talking to our representatives is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Yeah, yep. Just to have that voice, and not everyone understands. So being able to share that with those that can have an impact and hopefully change the way things work. Lenise, I was thinking of one thing when you mentioned of the gross income. Each foundation may have a different threshold, and similarly, like the specialty, if your specialty pharmacy has a financial program, their threshold might be different from a foundation, might be different from your manufacturer. Even if you believe that you're going to be over that income amount, because sometimes people are like, I'm not going to qualify. Sometimes it does help to get that official no. So just to be able to go through those steps, as I mentioned, when one door closes, the next one opens. So saying, yes, I already tried, I don't qualify for this, now what? Then you can go back to the pharmacy or back to the manufacturer and kind of go through those steps, because they will ask you if there's a foundation open. They will say, have you tried this already? So being able to have that answer right then and there is helpful too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. You know, that way that cuts out a step. If you've already done all these things and you could just sit there and say, nope, they said no, no.
Second. Yep.
Yeah. Been there, done that. They said no.
Exactly. As hard as it is hearing the word no, I mean, but it's one other piece, and you can bring it back to that next person you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Lanice, if we have just a time, I was going to share really quickly just to give a visual of that Fund Finder website too, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I did log in. So this is once you set up to have an account through their website. This is what you'll see when you log into your account, just on fundfinder.org. So these are all of the different funds that they have, that they track and they receive, and actually approve people for grants with any of these therapies and disease states and conditions. So you see how there's so many. There's a ton, but each one, this is a quick way, instead of calling every different foundation to see if they're open for PH, when you do sign up, you can log in here, and I have a couple that I follow already. So I can click there and see my funds that I'm following. And then you can see right off the bat, if it's a green unlock little icon, then they have something available. If it's red, unfortunately, they're all closed. So then you can expand to see what are listed. When you actually click on the therapy and disease state, then you can see all of the different ones, and it shows in real time, like when it was last updated. So they're constantly monitoring as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
then
very
each of these, you know, when something is open, then you can click on that foundation name. So I'll go to pulmonary fibrosis since they have one open. So you can see Patient Advocate Foundation is open. You can click on it and then go straight to it. So, and this is another thing, if you have someone that you can depend on, if you might not have a computer handy or whatnot to navigate through, you can give them that and they could get the alerts as well. So that's just something else I wanted to share.
Wait, that was Patient Advocacy? Is that?
So that was actually, that's the link that Katie shared in the chat. This is the fundfinder.org.
Okay.
Yep.
Fundfinder.org.
I just think it's interesting to actually see it. You know, we can talk about all the resources a lot, but I think it kind of helps to have a visual too. And then you can follow as many as you need. Yeah.
There is a lot.
Oh, yes. Quite a bit, you know, it's so, I mean, even just this, as we're talking through what the need is, this is evidence right here. I mean, the fact that all of these different conditions are in need of copay assistance, that's right there should show us, you know, show our legislation that something needs to change, you know. And I know you had mentioned sarcoidosis, so they also, I mean, it's currently closed, but that's something you could even follow the Fund Finder with too, if you have any comorbidities or associated diseases.
Oh, so this is also for comorbidities.
Yes. So you could follow any diagnoses that you have. And I mean, I've even shared this with PH patients who have someone in their family that might have a different diagnosis and they never even realize that these things exist. So, and this one shows the transportation fund that the PAN Foundation has. So that one, again, is one that's open to anyone that currently has a grant for copay assistance. They can also then apply to get this transportation funding as well.
This information is so extremely important to people, I mean, this, when I first got my diagnosis of pulmonary hypertension, I was just a lost soul. I didn't know the first thing I was so overwhelmed. And the people, I mean, certainly the doctor's offices, they didn't know anything. And so I started out and I actually called the manufacturer, and I did get myself, because they thought originally that I would have to be on tadalafil. So I got support from them, but still I was like, how did I ever do that? And what do I do next? So I think one of the areas where this is the most important is to the new diagnoses. I think that people may die because they don't know what to do, and there really should be assignment of professionals to help at that point when you first get your diagnosis. And I'm just really so impressed listening to all of this information. It's like phenomenal. So
and Doreen, I know I feel the same way. When I first was diagnosed, I said, so what do I need? Another inhaler? I had no idea, what was to come.
Yeah.
And this information is truly phenomenal, because I did see a couple of my comorbidities on that real quick. So I'm going to go and look it up, because what we think about the PAH, we don't think about of course we think about the other stuff because we take medicine, but we don't think about getting help for the other comorbidities. And that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're the girl. You are the woman, Marcie.
Hey, it's teamwork. And I agree with you, Doreen. That's the thing. It's so overwhelming, just all of the information that's out there, but it's really, how can we better spread it, and inform people and just share before someone might give up. So that's the goal. That's what drives me. I know that for sure.
Wow. Anybody else have questions or comments? Take them all.
Actually, I wanted to share with you the website for that angel flight. I have a little link to it right here. If you give me a quick second. Let me see here. I'm trying to see if it will show me the screen for you guys. It won't let me do it, but it's angelflight.org or angelflightcentral.org is the one I just linked into. And it actually really does, it does what I'm saying. Like I said, it helped me. And I sort of wanted to share that with you as well.
So glad you did, because quite frankly, I had no idea. That's phenomenal. Thank you so much. And this is stuff that we can share with other people.
Oh yeah, it helps with multiple diseases, not just ours.
Life is good. Life is good. Anybody else have a question or comment? Okay, Marcie, back to you.
All right. Well, I know we talked through, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing. One thing that I thought of when you mentioned tadalafil is if all of the resources are exhausted, one other one that does exist is goodrx.com, and that can be used specifically only for pH medications. The only two that it can be used for is tadalafil and sildenafil. And I mean, what you could do if you cannot find funding and the specialty pharmacy still has a high copay, you could check that goodrx.com or have someone, you could call them as well, and see which local retail pharmacies that are nearby, what the copay might be for those at a retail pharmacy. And then what you would need to do is they have a coupon card that GoodRx would provide you with. And you can show that to the pharmacist when you go to pick it up after your doctor calls it in to your pharmacy of choice. You could show that coupon card and they would charge you that dollar amount that was listed. And I've seen on the website specifically for tadalafil, I've seen some that are still quite expensive. They might be over $100, but there's some pharmacies that I've seen it as low as like $20 or $15. So, I mean, that's a better option than just not taking it any longer if there are no other resources available. So that's one other thing I thought of, but other than that, I think I just have so enjoyed this conversation with you all and talking through it and being able to share. And I appreciate hearing all of your input and experiences and other resources. I've loved to learn. So I'm definitely going to share the Angel Flight with others and things like that. But just thank you to you all for taking the time and having me today.
We are so thankful. Let's give a hand up to Marcie. Hey, Marcie, thank you.
Right back
know,
at you.
No, thank you so much, because I took copious notes. I have notes. But also too, now, Marcie, you said that we could get a copy of your wish. How we do that?
Yeah, so what I can do, if it works best, I can send the slides. I can also send a quick, I just have a bullet list of updates that I send to our team that we share with doctor's office and clinics as well whenever we know of something. So I'll give you the full list of everything that I know of. And then I'll share that marketing piece that we have. And even if you don't use CVS specialty, that doesn't matter. You can still use all of these resources. And then, so I'll get them to you, Lanice, and Katie. And I think Katie just mentioned she'll be able to email that out to all of the attendees today too.
Yeah, and you know what? If you can, let me put it in here. Oops, wait, first I have to hit chat. I'm like so challenged. To everyone. Okay. Lanice at team PHENOMENALHOP.com. .org. Maybe. Is that org? Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that went to the chat. If you can send me your, I did?
Mm-hmm.
Whew. If you can send me your email addresses, then I'll make sure that you'll get it. If you want a copy of these slides and the information that Marcie provided. And I messed up because I was supposed to go around and say, hi, who are you? Where are you from? But I know most of you, so life is good. But for those I didn't, Elizabeth, I got yours. Frederick, I don't have yours, but I've seen you on other support groups, so I know you're in New York, correct? Okay. Charlotte, I have yours. And I know Kathleen, Sue, I have yours. Satine, I have yours. Denise, of course, I got, and of course, I got Doreen's. So I'm thankful for everybody that chimed in, and I'm thankful that for all the information that you shared. There was a lot of information.
Oh, yes. So good.
Yes, I'm so thankful. Our next meeting will be in May. To be determined, and also the subject will be determined. But check this out. You have my email address. If there's something you want to talk to me, you want to talk about as a subject, email me. Let me know, because technically, and always, this is your support group meeting. We want to do what everybody said. Okay. Frederick, let me tell you how. I need new glasses. Baby, you know what? Can you send it to my mail? I can't see the print. Oh my God. But anyway, thank you so much, everybody.
I'll copy it.
Oh, thank God. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating, giving information. And Kate, gosh, I also get my kids mixed up. Marcie, thank you so much. It has been so incredibly informative.